All right, hello and welcome. How is everyone doing on a wonderful Tuesday, December the 29th? My goodness, everyone. We are just, 2 days, depending on how you count days, uh, from the New Year's. 2 days away, and 2020 is finally over. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it a lot. Glad we are rounding out this year. I'm glad that we're having a fun time doing it too here over on Life with Matthew. And I'm going to pontificate just for a little bit and stall as I actually started on time. And so I think I caught John a little off guard because usually I don't start very on time. Usually it takes me a few minutes to get things up and going here. So I will, well, while we wait just a little bit and we let people stream in, I guess one of the things I need to do is put a link, or not a link, but go ahead and you can put that right there today. Oh, here's John in the back. That's much better. Hey, John, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. So I just put the link right here. So anyone who wants to join us in the watch area can go to this link, the cytu.be/r/life with Matthew. And what this will let you do is it will let you watch it live as we talk about it. So the way this works, we are going to have a little clip show, which is going to be right there. You are. And every 5 seconds, I grab a clip and I put up the new one. It changes every 5 seconds. So we will provide some live commentary, what's going on, what people are saying as this happens. But if you are able to, you can come over to. Oh, now it's off center. You can go to the link that John just put into the screen or into the stream chat, and I will have it right here for the entire video. And the reason we do this is if you put it out too much, it seems like YouTube gets a little pissy at your stream. So we put it once in the chat, and then I keep it on the screen right here for anyone who shows up late. So if you want to watch it live with us, you can watch it live there. And all this does is if you go to Peacock TV and you set up an account with them, you can watch SeaQuest for free without any monthly subscriptions. And what we do is we show the one episode a week as if we are all watching it together, and it just syncs up our view times together. So that's how this all works, and that's how we make sure that we're not infringing on anyone's copyright. We're not taking away money from anyone. You have the exact same experience watching it on Peacock TV as you do here with us. And this link only works for the next hour. So if you do not have, or if you're not watching this live, if you want to watch this later with us, you will have to go to Peacock TV and watch it there if you want to watch it at the same time as we talk about it. So I was gonna say, first of all, I finally got my Moscow Mule. I have been wanting this for several weeks, and I keep having other drinks instead. So I finally got myself a little mule, and I'm quite satisfied with it. It's the simple things in life, you know. And then I was also going to mention, as I was going to wait for you, I had a really wonderful thing happen today, John. My son, they got some Kindle Fires for kids, and so it has that big foam case, and I put the Bible app on it for my oldest son, and because he knows how to read now, and I thought he would really enjoy reading it from his tablet, which was true. He can make it big, he can highlight verses he likes, stuff like that. And then my youngest son saw that he had it on his tablet too, and he's like, Dad, I want this. So I went ahead and installed it for him, and he actually wanted to read the Bible along with us tonight, which usually he just sits next to us, right? So the only problem with this is that he doesn't know how to read. He is only 4. So what happened is I sounded out each word for him, and he would repeat the word after we had sounded it out together, and he thought he was so awesome being able to read along with us, and it was really fun. And then when we all prayed at the end, he's like, Dad, we've been talking about the Lord's Prayer and how God taught us how to come before him, how to model our prayers after. And he's like, Dad, we've been talking about this, and one of the things I know is that we're supposed to kind of pray over the Bible. We read it, we pray about the things it talks about. So I want to do that. And so he had his tablet open as if he was going to be able to read it on the spot. And he had me tell him all the different things that happened in the passage we read tonight. We read from Acts chapter 3, where Peter and John healed the lame man at the temple. And he's just trying to pray through all this, but like his brain wasn't quite keeping up with it. And so he's like, Dear Lord, we thank you for sin and for dying on the cross. Is that right? Like, and so, like as he was saying it, he's like, that doesn't sound right, but it was so sweet to see him trying to figure this out. And I really liked it. So that's my quick little story as I wait for people to come in. And with that said, John, how was your day?
Oh, it wasn't bad. How about you?
It was good. We had that in the evening, and then throughout the day, I had some remote troubleshooting that I was providing. So was really glad to have my computer working today, because it would have been impossible if it hadn't been working. Where just one of the motors that control a belt all of a sudden went in reverse. Just, hey, here we go, going backwards. And no one had told it to, so they were trying to figure out if this was a programming issue. They finally took off the control board of it and tried to hook up into it with the computer, and they're like, oh, it's not showing anything. We think the control board went haywire. And I said, yeah, that's probably it, because on a program level, there's no way to send a reverse command. I have hard-coded in a only run forward command, so yeah, that's a thing. So they replaced that out, and they were good after that. And Multi-Gunman, how you doing tonight? He's saying, how's it going? Going pretty good. Had a fun day. He wants to know that Peacock, or he wants to say that Peacock is not available in my region. I am so sorry about that. I do highly recommend. I am not sponsored by them, but I'm willing to shill. If you're listening, NordVPN, I will shill for you. Let's talk. I have 200 subscribers. I'm a big channel. Oh gosh, but no, I do use NordVPN. I really like it, and I think they're actually running a like 75% off sale right now because they're pestering me about that today. But yeah, I like it and lets me be anywhere in the world I want to be, and then I can use something like a Netflix search to figure out what movies are available in which region, and you know it really opens up the possibilities of what you can watch and what you can't watch. I have no idea why it's this way. I'm sure there's all sorts of, hundreds of lawyers that have gotten together to figure out why Netflix can and can't distribute certain movies in certain regions, but it makes no sense to me. And Multi-Gunman wants to know, am I an electrician? I am not. I just work with electricity a lot. So I'm a PLC programmer. And one of the first things I do when I get to a job site and they're like, oh, hey, can you do this? And I'll say, no, that's 480 volts. Once it gets above 120, I am not licensed to touch it. I am not competent to touch it. I'm not going to risk my life or the lives of people around me to be touching it. So you do need to get a journeyman or a licensed electrician out here, someone who is competent to not, kill us all. And they understand. But I do let them know, hey, as long as it's low voltage stuff, it gets into my cabinet where voltages are safe, I can diagnose it, I can troubleshoot why it's not working, but once we get above that 120 range, I'm really not qualified to do it, and I'm not going to. I'm sorry. And let's see, the Multi-Gunman is saying that or no worries, yeah, about the NordVPN. Hey, Springtime, how you doing? That's right, I am an ex-UEO Navy cook, which, oh my goodness, this week and last week are so spot on for what's going on in the current geopolitical climate. I think it was just last week we had the episode with Lewis at the with Tim Russ. Maybe that was 2 weeks ago, where there was a global fraud going or election fraud was going on in Venezuela in the TV show. So YouTube, I'm talking about a fictitious TV show. I am not talking about the U.S. elections. I am not claiming there is fraud in the U.S. elections, YouTube. Please don't get pissy at my video. Gosh, the disclaimers we make nowadays.
This is a notice that the AP has called the election for Joe Biden.
You can go to Google to find out more. Yeah, that's not suspicious or anything. Google sending me to Google? Okay, Google. Oh shoot, my phone's responding. Not okay, Google. Cancel. Stop listening. Just mute that.
Alexa, set alarm 2 a.m.
I have headphones on. It's not going to work. Of course, there might be other people in this stream who aren't as prudent. But yeah, so last week we had the episode with Lewis, finding fraud in Venezuela and fixing it, or maybe it was Brazil. It was somewhere in South America. And then this week, we are going to be talking about something else that's been in the news within the past week in Nashville, interestingly enough. So with that, let's go ahead and get this party started. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and hit play over here on the clips, and then we are going to hit play on the stream, and I'll give you a quick 5 count. Hopefully everyone can sync up this way, but we're going to start this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and play. And let me know if the audio comes in, because who knows if I haven't fixed that. So the episode starts off with Ford. We find out that Ford is being offered a command of his own sub. They call it a Bruno class sub, so it's not as amazing as SeaQuest, because nothing is. But it is a command position of his own. And he's currently kind of going back and forth.
Or not.
Yeah. Like, what are the pros and cons? Well, the pros for staying is SeaQuest is a unique opportunity. There's no one else in the world that you can go to have the opportunities of SeaQuest. He's like, but on the other side, I get to be in command of my own sub. And here's finally a widescreen shot of the view screen area, which I may be able to clip out and do a green screen on, because I think that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be nice. We learned that most of the ships have been evacuated. They're going to be doing an experiment, but they've received a distress call from another ship that they want to check out.
Excuse me. And this ship or the experiment that they're doing is they're going to sink the SeaQuest, like intentionally. And the idea is that they have some emergency system that will automatically unsink SeaQuest that they want to test out. Meanwhile, we find out that, oh gosh, help me with his name here.
Krieg.
I was going to say Craig. I'm like, that's not it at all. That Krieg apparently is up for an officer test. And he wants to know if Ford stays, is he going to sign off on his officer evaluation? And Ford tells him no. He says flat out no. He says, look, let me be honest with you. A officer needs to have class, or needs to have character, not be a character. And, it really hurts Krieg, but there's a little bit of truth to that. Krieg has certainly been growing over the season, but he started off as a Eddie Haslett from Leave It to Beaver. And hey, Darren Wagner, how are you doing? Did I know that Roy Schneider was a nudist in his personal life? I didn't. I try so hard to know nothing about anyone in Hollywood. If I can respect someone for being a good actor, that's just where I want to leave it. Like Harrison Ford, favorite actor. Don't know a thing about his personal life. I never want to know a thing about his personal life. So he and Fishface, his words, not mine, are being told to get off the ship. Lewis really wanted to stay behind, make sure the test went well, but he's like, no, get off. It's time to get out of here. And everything looks good. They got their custom D-shells all hooked up into the circuitry. They're about to start the crash dive. And here comes our scientist, who's supposed to be overseeing this mission, or this experiment. Except, it's not the scientist. Dun dun dun!
They just knocked out Cracker, but they got the alarm off just in time.
And I have to laugh so much at, there is one of these invaders who every time he comes into the scene, he is just like trying to look so intimidating, and it just looks like he has gas or something. It's hilarious. I see Darren saying Paul Newman lived on a homestead with no electricity and no indoor plumbing. Huh. Let's see. I'm thinking Randy Newman. Randy Newman was the musician who did Toy Story. The "You Got a Friend in Me." I'm not
Well, I
sure who
really
Paul
know about
Newman
his
was.
secrets of Darwin's personal life. What does he do when he's off camera?
I don't even want to know the sites he goes to with Lewis's help. Well, thankfully, because of Crocker's emergency distress signal, Hitchcock over here was able to start shutting things down and locking it up so that they wouldn't have access to the surface-to-air missiles or the nuclear missiles or, any of the advanced weaponry that exists within SeaQuest or within SeaQuest. Paul Newman was an actor, a rather major one, in fact. I'd have to see his face. I got a chance here while they are doing the wonderful music by John Delaney. Let's see, Paul Newman. His face isn't ringing any bells. Like, these are a lot of young Paul Newman shots. I see one where he was in a sailor's get-up. Yeah, it's not ringing any bells for me, Paul Newman. I should feel shame, but I don't.
Do you ever feel shame, Matthew?
As little as possible.
Let's be used to that kind of thing in Cayuga.
It's a way of life. You just you accept it. Okay, so we get this the invading commander guy. He wants to know how many people are loose, how many people are still here. And of course, Krieg lies, says there's no one. And he immediately says, "Well, you're lying. I don't believe you." And it's like, why are you even asking the question then? You already have your mind made up. Krieg could have been telling the truth, and you wouldn't have believed him. Like, what is even the point of this dialogue? So Ford is trying to get a hold of Kate Hitchcock. But he can't get a hold of her on the bridge. But instead, we get Darwin. Darwin is here to save the day. Everyone's not free. There's strangers aboard. And Ford hears them off in the distance, so he quickly grabs a kind of mini respirator thing. Like, it's literally a tube this big that holds a very short supply of oxygen. And he uses that to swim off with Darwin. Because life is better under the sea.
Just imagine if Darwin hadn't warned him how bad a shape they would be in.
Yeah.
Really, I'm really glad he was there. Well,
Yeah, Ford never would have been able to figure out that people had taken over the ship. Or the ship was being invaded. See,
the invaders have some kind of machine they're trying to break into the bridge with.
Yeah, like the jaws of life. And Springtime wants to know, was it true that Hitchcock forgot to inspect the food supply for the submarine? I don't think it would have been her responsibility. It would have been Krieg's, honestly. He's the quartermaster. Maybe the chefs. I don't know, Darren, who usually has to do the checking of food aboard a sub? Is that the quartermaster's responsibility, or is that the chef's main responsibility? But they do make it through. And he shuts off the alarm. Glad we're not going to be hearing that all episode long. And everyone slowly sets up shop. And this guy, this is the most respectful pat down I've ever seen. He very gently just kind of taps her back in a couple spots. Very respectful. Well done, that man. Duck Lips, on the other hand, is he is less friendly. I thought that guy was Daniel from SG-1 when I first saw his face. He looks so much like Daniel Jackson. I forget the actor's name. So the invader wants to know what this lady's name is, and she gives, name, rank, serial number. And he wants to know, no, I need more information than that. You're going to have to talk to me. And he goes, my friend can make you talk. And she says, I'll lie. He goes, he can make you tell the truth.
He'll give you another respectful pat down.
He has a rubber balloon he likes to inflate and just make it squeak over and over again. It's aggravating. I talk. But Ford shows up, grabs her arm from within the pool, and he gives a really confusing instruction. She says that she's going to jump into the water the first chance she gets. And he says, no, I want you to stay here, control what they know, but no matter what, even if it's classified, tell them the truth. Don't lie to them about anything. And that makes zero sense to me. Like, it pays off by the end. But within this moment, we never get any sort of explanation why he wants her to be truthful. And so the invader guy, he says, who was that? And you see Katie really mulls over it. Katie Mulgrew. Katie really mulls over this for a second and then answers honestly. It was Commander Ford, Jonathan Devon Ford. And everyone's shocked. She says, well, she told the truth. And the guy says, well, she did for now, but she'll start lying as soon as she thinks we trust her.
Well, Commander Ford must be a master of psychological warfare. He's setting this guy up and he knows it's going to pay off later.
He must, because it pays off in a major way. But I would have loved just like half a sentence explanation as to why he wanted to tell her the truth. Like, no, if you lie, all they're going to do is torture you. I need you in peak condition. I don't know, something. So Crocker is not doing well. He has a concussion. He's been hit really hard. Looks like he also maybe broke or fractured his arm or something. Dislocated shoulder, that's what it was. And Krieg is saying, I'm going to get you out of here. We're going to go through the vents. And Crocker says, that's impossible. Even if you manage to do this, there's going to be all these fan blades. They're going to rip you to shreds. And Krieg is actually like, well, no. If I go this route, everything connects to the freezers, to the vents. And apparently he's been, really studying the ship, trying to pass his officer exam. And Darwin, being very tactically minded, helps distract one of the guards long enough for Ford to jump in and give a massively good right cross and knock this guy out in one hit. He must have been one of the IT guys.
You see how Darwin is truly indispensable in the defense of the ship.
It's true. In this episode, Darwin is the real star. I mean, look, Ford is doing his best Bruce Willis impersonation, but Darwin is the real star. Springtime wants to know, is it true that she was in liege with Krieg and helping to buy expired food and help keep the money for themselves? No, Springtime. Hitchcock is actually an extremely above-board individual. You couldn't get anything past her, and we tried, but no, she was very no-nonsense when it came to following the rules and regulations.
Yeah, she's not from Cayuga.
And Ford decides not to kill the guys. Like, he could have just left the guy face down in the water and had one person permanently removed from this engagement. But he actually, very respectfully, pulls the guy out and puts him in the quarantine area. It's a good thing he did, because now he is running to Lewis. So his army is up to 1.5 people.
Plus Darwin counts for like 5 people at least.
That's true. I was forgetting Darwin. So 1.5 people and 5 honorary people. Springtime saying, why did the crew hate Darwin? That dolphin knows what he did.
Well, the crew loves Darwin. It's just a certain host has some kind of issue with him for some reason.
He knows what he did. That animatronic beast. And I like this. Lewis, he's scared out of his mind right now. There's an invading army that's taken, or invading force that's taken over the ship. And he's really, really scared. But Ford says that's okay. Use your fear. Your fear will keep you hyper alert. It's going to keep you on your toes. Use your fear. It's okay to be afraid. But we got a guy who is now following them, and he's radioed ahead that that Lewis and Ford are headed their way. Let's see. Multi-gunman is saying Darwin must be Kurogan if he's equivalent to 5 people. Yes. Darwin clearly is Kurogan. Hey, Daniel's Hot Topic. He says, "Oh, I never got to say anything on the last cast." Yeah, it was definitely hard at certain times for everyone to get a word in edgewise. I do apologize for that. Some people clearly they had a they jumped in a little too much. Some people, and that's fine. They'll learn. See, Ford is just too nice. He gets the drop on this guy, and then he stands there waiting for the guy to stand back up. But, of course, the guy, he sweeps the legs. Everyone knows to sweep the legs. Fortunately, Lewis is here. He's extremely useful. Everyone is extremely useful in this episode, and it is really fun. So Lewis sees that the guy is really uncomfortable, and he's like, "Oh, is that too tight?" And he rips the duct tape off the guy and puts it back on. He's like, "I hope that's better." Springtime is asking, what was it like when POTUS Trump was on the SeaQuest? Because it happened in 2018. Military people have always really appreciated Trump. Trump has tended to respect them. I know there was a clip where it seemed, or people were claiming Trump wasn't respecting the military, but it turned out that was a very heavily doctored clip. So people were actually pretty excited when he visited the SeaQuest. There was some tension with Upper Command, though, because Upper Command, they weren't a big fan of him cutting funding to the UEO. He said that the other nations need to pull their own weight. But you know what? He was right. The other nations did need to pull their own weight. Everyone had agreed to assign certain percentages of GDP, and they weren't keeping their agreement. So it was rough for the commanders, but it had to happen. And poor Crocker, he's getting worse by the minute. He keeps fading in and out. But Krieg is determined to get them out of this situation. And Lewis has reprogrammed the Whiskers for communication. So from now on, they can get a point-to-point communication going on with Bridger to let them know what's going on the ship. And it is technically possible that someone could discover this, but Lewis, he makes a weird comment. He says that lasers don't make a sound underwater, so no one will be able to tell that the Whiskers are being activated. But radio waves don't make a sound underwater either, technically. Like maybe he's trying to say, like, if you did a radio transmission, then maybe the radio transmission could be picked up. Although it's not technically making a sound, you would just detect the transmission. Whereas with a laser sight, you have to be in a direct line of sight for it to work. Maybe that's what he was trying to say. Meanwhile, Bridger had no idea what was going on. And Ford is letting them know that, yeah, we got taken over by some commandos. We're doing our best to, mount a defense, but we're on a skeleton crew, like 7 people maybe. Krieg, Hitchcock, Ford, Lewis, Darwin, and then two red shirts, I want to say. So yeah, about 7 people. And they're quite concerned. They've been hacking, or they have been hacking. They have been using the SeaQuest authorization to get information that they need from the UEO network. Which I guess UEO just said, as long as you're using this terminal, you must be someone approved. Hopefully they change that. That is not a secure method for network security. But now they realize... Yeah, go on.
Sorry. I'm just saying the bridge will let them know that if they detect that they're starting to activate the weapons, they'll have to destroy the SeaQuest.
And meanwhile, Darwin goes off to be their spy on the bridge. Daniel wants to know, have I ever noticed how everyone on Star Trek has sideburns? Even Tasha Yar had them. I did notice the sideburns on Tasha Yar. Troy didn't have them, though, I don't think.
Well, the sideburns were standard Starfleet issue.
Yeah, she was exempt. Hey, Professor Bernie Specs, how you doing? Okay, this is the guy, I think. Every time he like bursts into a room or something, he just has the most ridiculous expression on his face. He really has this big old duck lip that he does like the whole time. And Ford comes to release the prisoners and gets ambushed by everyone inside. Daniel's Hot Topic is asking, you just got home from Walmart. Guess what I got at Walmart? PS5? You get a PS5 at Walmart, Daniel? Or did you get, I don't know, maybe some Discovery on Blu-ray? Yep, I had to get it. It was 10 bucks. Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Very nice, Daniel. Not my cup of tea, but I'm glad you got it. I'm a big fan of physical media.
Ward said he's going to flood the boat like they planned with the experiment, but he's going to disable the system that's supposed to pump the water back out.
Which is interesting because the system almost ends up being a bit of a red herring. Like, you would think that the system would be the device that saves the day, and it turns out they actually needed to disable the device. So they thought they had the codes they needed to get the weapons online, and when everyone was distracted, Hitchcock quickly sat down, slammed her hand on the keyboard, Kramer style, for a couple seconds, and was able to immediately delete all the codes. So they're going to have to start over from scratch, and it's going to take much longer than they expected. And the invader guy gives, like, one of the dumbest lines in this episode. Like, he gets in her face like a disappointed dad. He's like, stupid. That was stupid. And, like, that's... I think I'd have a stronger word or something if I was him at this point.
We'll find out later this guy isn't exactly a hardened criminal.
It's true. You know, Ford really gets the action hero status for this episode. But Crocker is amazing in this episode. Like, he is just tough as nails, not willing to give up even for a second, despite the fact that he is injured, can barely walk, has a dislocated shoulder, is constantly almost passing out from a concussion. He is just tough of nails and rocking it in this episode. Multi-Gunman is saying there's only 2 kinds of people. Those that believe Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and those that are wrong. You know, I have never seen Die Hard. It's on my to-do list, but I've never gotten around to actually watching it. But the invaders have completely destroyed Lucas's room in order to break the comm link, or in theory to break the comm link that he had set up. But thankfully Lucas had done a backup. Like he saw this coming somehow, and he routed things over to the hologram guy. And the hologram guy recognizes that Ford is now the highest ranking officer, and as a result has the authority to access his subsystems. And apparently before he was interrupted, Lucas was feeding images from the bridge to the AI guy's visual enhancer. And so he was able to take a shot of the guy's face, the invader's face, and find out that this is Colonel Schrader. He used to be part of the UEO, part of the environmental branch, but he retired recently. And Professor Brainy Specs is saying Daniel's hot topic, you paid too much for his Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Springtime is saying, I heard that Captain Bridger wasn't as great as Trump made him out to be. No, no, no. Bridger's a wonderful guy. Pretty good captain. And Crocker goes off to mess up the wiring on SeaQuest. Ford has asked him that if they try to open a hatch, I want the toilets to be flushing. And so Crocker is like, yeah, make toilets flush. And he hobbles off to take care of his task. Meanwhile, Krieg over here is going to be a distraction. He's going to keep them kind of chasing after him so that Ford has a chance to get in and make the changes that he needs to do to hopefully stop these people. Hey, Robert Rose Jr., how you doing? Apparently, SeaQuest doesn't have a self-destruct. They have talked about scuttling the ship at this point, if it comes to it. But so far, they're hoping that they don't have to do that. And the Schroeder, he asks where the signal is coming from, and Lewis lies. He's somewhere in engineering. And Hitchcock tells the truth. It's coming from the captain's quarters. And Lewis is shocked. Like, why are you telling the truth? This makes no sense, which I do agree. It doesn't make sense. So they send someone to take care of this, and he he starts shooting the hologram.
Great plan.
It definitely wasn't best for him, but Krieg, he was actually really smart. He used the distraction of the hologram to shut the door and put a lock on it so the guy can't open it anymore. And this is one of the reasons I'm like, Crocker is amazing this episode. He's crawling through this like maintenance way, having to use his dislocated arm in immense pain and just refusing to stop.
Yeah, that guy is awesome. He's not exactly a young guy either.
Yeah. So Colonel Schrader gets a message from the fleet on top, and he says, no video, don't let them see who I am. But, Bridger already knows, so he's like, what are you, camera shy, Commander Schrader? Open it up. And so we find out that what's going on here is that the Schrader was part of a green movement, and he has been completely jaded by the events going on. That there's too much pollution. People are just using bribes to get things pushed through anyway. And no matter what he did, there was always some reason to let the sludge and pollution go into the oceans. And this is interesting because if the show was made today, the terrorist guy would be the hero of the episode, because he'd be right. But in this episode, Bridger actually says, you're right, but to turn off these factories would shut off electricity. Like, this is where our electricity is coming from, and to turn them off, people would be suffering in the immediate term, just because in the long term it's causing damage. Like, there is a better way of doing it. We need to be transitioning away from these things. Yes, but we can't just shut them down, because that would cause suffering of human life. But unfortunately, Schrader here disagrees, and he realizes that the captain's just stalling him anyway, so he cuts off communications. And here's Crocker doing his stuff in the maintenance ways, using a piece of film to figure out what rewiring he needs to do. While Ford goes around and he disconnects the thing they were about to test. The emergency ballast system is all I got for it. Like, they don't call it a ballast system, but that's the idea. It is a emergency ballast system such that in the event that the ship is sinking, it can blow, the submarine will rise, and, you know, ideally lives will be saved. Yeah, here's Mr. Ducklips coming in with just like the most serious face he can muster. It's hilarious. Daniel's Hot Topics wants to know, do I like Superman? They released a trailer for the new Superman show titled Superman and Lois, and they hint at an infinite crisis in the trailer. I do like Superman. And I enjoyed the animated series back when... Oh, what was his name was in charge of it? It was Batman the Animated Series back in the 90s. They had
Bruce
a
Timm.
Batman... Bruce Timm, that's the guy. He was amazing. He was the Kevin Feige of the animated series. And the shows he did, Batman, Superman, later on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, were all fantastic. I think he was also involved in Batman Beyond, maybe. So they're talking about how they're descending right now. They're at 7,000 feet, and his sub is only rated for 5,000 feet. If he escapes, where does he think he's going to go? And he says, we're in the Philippine Islands. I dare someone to try to find me right now. And Hitchcock keeps being honest. And it was like, why are you doing this? Why are you telling the truth? And she says, well, I was ordered to do so. And until I get confirmation that he's dead or something, I'm going to keep following my orders.
Imagine that. A subordinate following orders.
Let's see, you know an awesome show from the 90s you can do a watch review? Sliders. Oh, Daniel, that is correct. I do love me some Sliders. It is an awesome show. The only problem is, would we make it to the end? In either the second or the third season, the original creators got canned, and the people who came in, they went a weird direction with it. So Bridger calls in, and he says, I want to show you something. And this is the Cayuga River, and this was an actual event that happened in 1969. There was so much oil and debris in the river that there was an accident and the river caught fire. And it was all over magazines and mainstream media about how horrible the pollution was. And it was made out to be like this really major disaster. And it turns out the fire lasted for like 30 minutes and then put itself out. So it was a very bad thing that there was that much pollution. But they were able to overhype it. And we got some really, really major laws created because of this overhyped incident. Not that I could point to that and say there's something kind of going on in modern times about, people overhyping something and creating legislation based on an overhyped number. I don't know. I'm just talking here, guys. Certainly something like that doesn't happen in real life.
Yes, definitely our government leaders and our media are always calm and rational, give, balanced information.
See, Ender Tiger is letting us know that a quartermaster in the Navy specializes in navigation and performs ceremonial details. I stand corrected. I've been calling Krieg a quartermaster when clearly he is not. I'm used to more of the maybe archaic usage of the word quartermaster, to be honest. And Krieg shows up, and Ford's like, "What are you doing here?" And Krieg actually quotes protocol, saying, "Hey, you can't put yourself at risk. If there is a suitable substitute, it is the responsibility of a commander to use the substitute and keep himself safe." And Ford is, he's like, "Yes, okay, you're correct, but I can't ask you to do this." And Krieg is honest with him, says, I can't do it all. If this fails, I can't rescue everyone and save the ship. So only you can do that. So what they're trying to do right now is they want to open this valve that will start flooding SeaQuest, causing it to sink. Do they even make laser scopes like that in real life?
I
Like
don't
I'm
know.
used, I'm used to the red dot. Now, a red dot scope is literally just a red dot inside your scope that helps you line up your shots better. But it doesn't literally cast out a red dot onto the wall for, everyone to be alerted of your presence. I kind of feel like that's just a Hollywood trope.
It probably
So
is.
so Krieg gets the valve open and he grabs onto Ford's hand, but in a moment of, pretty authentic physics, the water pressure sweeps Krieg away. Like that would be some intense pressure coming in at 7,000 feet below. And Professor Brainy Specs is saying, just listening to the music, I swear I'm listening to Star Trek The Next Generation. Yeah. This really is just TNG under the sea. And Darwin lets everyone knows that SeaQuest is sinking, there's water inside, and he's begging Lucas to leave. So Hitchcock sits down and confirms that, yep, they're sinking, we're taking on water. So, okay, that's what the experiment was. It wasn't an emergency ballast system. It was an emergency pump system, which, it, if you, there's a guy named Matt, not me, Matt, another Matt. There's a lot of us, but he has a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, and his recent videos have been on his time aboard a nuclear submarine, a U.S. nuclear submarine. And one of the episodes he did was on the pump system, which is a fascinating system. But it does have to be set up manually. It's a space issue on a real sub. So the idea of their system they were doing here on the SeaQuest is a series of pumps that would emergency pump out water in the event that SeaQuest started to sink or take on water. And here's Crocker. Crocker to save the day. It just passes out, having completed his tasks. So as they try to open up the hatch to get out of there, the lights start to flicker. I bet a toilet flushes somewhere aboard the ship.
Must have.
And the hatch doesn't move an inch, or more than an inch. And this John DiMarco fellow is saying that he also hears TNG in the music. Apparently, the guy who wrote SeaQuest, who was John Delaney, also wrote the music for Orville. Which I can hear that now that John mentions it. So Ford opens up a comm channel to the Bridger, and he says, I suggest that you blow up any ship that leaves. If a small ship leaves, shoot it down. And Schrader over here, Schrodinger, Schroner,
Schrader, I think.
Schrader wants to know how long it will take to open the hatch, and Hitchcock continues to be honest, about an hour. And Ford is able to negotiate the release of Hitchcock in exchange for actually opening up the doors. Like, apparently he has some command code that will open it, even though Crocker went around messing things up. So the guy who's been doing comms this whole time, the IT stuff, he says, I can't do this. This is wrong. I agreed with your principal, but I can't be party to kidnapping women and children. So the invader Commander S, he's the only one who gets aboard the sub. Colonel Schrader. And Hitchcock tells the mercenaries, get out of there. He's opening the sea doors. Set down your weapons. And he shuts the blast door, pressure door.
Yeah, having been abandoned, the rest of the mercenaries surrender.
I mean, it makes sense. They don't have loyalty. They're just paid to do a job, and now they're not going to get paid. So Indy Tiger is saying that the ship's services is the division with cooks, barbers, etc. So Schrader, he's going off, and everyone's warning him that SeaQuest has been sinking for 15 minutes. He's too deep. If he opens up the outer doors, he'll be crushed. And so here's the payoff moment. He says, Hitchcock, if I open the bay doors, will I be crushed? And she answers honestly, yes, you will. And he says, that's the lie I've been waiting for. I know I'm safe. It's like, again, why even bother asking if you're not going to believe the individual? So, of course, he opens the doors and out he goes. And it doesn't take more than a couple seconds before the pressure starts to crush him like a empty soda can. And everyone just, sadly watches on while the pressure, it crushes him. He has a very ignoble end.
Thanks to realistic physics.
Yeah. They've been doing pretty good this episode on the physics department. So Ford tries to say something nice to the captain, but he's like, you're just trying to flatter me to stall your decision. Are you staying or are you going? And of course Ford stays. He likes the sub, he likes the people, and he thinks he has a lot to learn. I mean, it's not like he's a cadet who's been made second command or anything. He recognizes he has more to learn before he gets promoted.
Especially from Darwin.
Yeah, of course, and Lewis. So he thinks he's about to leave, but instead Bridger holds up a piece of paper and says, so about Krieg's command review. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he leaves, and they give each other a meaningful look, and Ford just shakes his head. And Krieg is like, oh, Commander, you won't regret this, I promise. And Hitchcock is like, no, he already does regret signing off on Krieg. Apparently, passing his command training. And good old Bob Ballard, he starts talking about how more and more we're going to have to rely to deposits under the sea in order to get our precious resources, minerals, oil, and talks about how apparently in recent years they've begin finding cobalt and nickel in mountain ranges under the sea. And so as time moves forward, we are going to have to be mining if we want to get a hold of these rare earth metals under the sea. And that's the episode, everyone. So, John, how did you enjoy today's episode?
Well, I thought it was a lot of fun. You said everybody is useful. They do things that are realistic to retake the ship, and they showed that they're better than their enemies by not killing anybody.
Was there anything negative about today's episode for you?
I agree with what you said earlier that Ford telling Hitchcock to always tell the truth was kind of odd. We know how it worked out at the end, but I still don't know what exactly motivated him to do that.
Yeah, that was. I think that really was my only gripe with today's episode. I mean, okay, there were a couple cheesy lines like "stupid." That was stupid. I'm like, what are you doing? Reprimanding a 5-year-old in a horrible manner? But beyond that, it was just a moment that didn't make sense. Unfortunately, it didn't really impact the episode too much. It was still a great episode. Still an extremely fun episode. But I think that would be, push comes to shove, I'd say that is the thing that would make me go, it wasn't a perfect episode. It was just a good episode. In fact, I think it would have worked if he said, I want you to tell the truth no matter what, gain their trust, and at a critical moment, that's when you lied to them. And then I would have had the lie be that he would be just fine if he left the sub-bay doors and he believes her and gets crushed. Like, the only problem with that is that's not how SeaQuest rolls. No one in SeaQuest would knowingly murder someone like that. Like, there's a big difference between shooting someone because they're shooting at you and sending someone to go outside to get crushed under the pressure of the ocean.
Yeah, that's not how they roll.
Yeah. They're not 7 of 9.
Yes, they're very much the Ocean Starfleet.
Yes. The actual Star Federation. Sub-Federation? Yeah, Sub-Federation. It was so in terms of good things, I really, really have to praise it for the way that while this episode was Ford-centric, he wasn't a Michael Burnham. He didn't solve all the problems. It was only thanks to the work of Lewis and especially Crocker and Krieg even, and everyone coming together to do their part that the mission came off successfully. The saving SeaQuest worked. Had anyone not been pulling their weight, it would have failed. And even more than Ford, I think this was like, excuse me, I think this episode was more about Krieg, to be honest. Like, it was him, it really showcased him stepping up to the plate, showing that he knew protocol, he knew the layout of the ship. He wasn't just this sassy, annoying person that we saw in the first few episodes, culminating in his experience of collecting squid poop. Glowing squid poop. So, yeah.
It's almost like everyone on the ship earned their position through years of hard work, and it wasn't just handed to them on a platter.
Well, Lewis, but even he has grown to deserve his spot. Like, he literally was, my daddy donated a bunch of money and dumped me off here. But even he has been like, I guess even in the first episode, he proved that he had some value in creating the Darwin Matrix.
Yes, he did kind of get gifted his position, but he obviously is qualified.
And I'll say this for Lewis. I think in that first episode, had he not proven himself useful, Bridger would have kicked him off. Bridger was under no compulsion to keep him on there. It doesn't matter that your daddy, you know, funded a lot. Bridger would have pulled strings and gotten him off. It is because Lewis proved himself to be useful from the get-go that he earned his spot on SeaQuest. Like, at least to the point where Bridger was like, you know what? He's useful. He's worked out this thing with Darwin. Maybe this will be a good experience for him. I'll let him stay on board. And then from that point, he has really been proving himself to be a competent member of the crew. You know, he's still young. He still makes mistakes. Thank goodness, because that makes him a more compelling character. But he's earned his place.
Yeah, there's no one character who can do everything. Like you said, they all have to work together and their strengths complement each other, which is much more interesting than one person always saving the day.
Yeah. And on that, it was nice to not have Bridger on this episode. He really got sidelined today. And I really appreciate that because I just got done with season 3 of Enterprise. And season 3 really turned into the Scott Bakula show, where in every episode, he's the one, something goes wrong and he's out there, you know, beating people up and doing all these action-y things. And, you know, when you binge watch it, it gets a little old. It's still a much better show than Discovery, don't get me wrong. I've been enjoying it. It's just when I binge watch it, I'm kind of like, oh, you know what? This happens all the time. And it's something that you don't notice until you do that binge watch. So I really appreciate the fact that they aren't doing that with SeaQuest. That they are saying each person, we're going to do a episode focusing on them. And it's really making me more invested in the characters. In fact, I'll say this. After this episode, this is when I wish they did the second episode of the season. The one where Darwin was sick and Bridger had to choose between saving Darwin and completing the mission. With the, what was it called? Like Hell's Window, I think it was. Where they're having to set it down the volcano. Whoops.
Yeah, the Devil's Window, I think it was called.
Devil's Window, there you are. I still wish it had been about Krieg or Ford or Hitchcock or Lewis. Oh, it should have been about Lewis. That would have been great. But even if they stuck with it being Darwin, if that episode happened at this point in the series, I actually would have cared more. Instead of being like Darwin is just the most annoying person on the cast, I wish he would go ahead and die and free us from his tyranny. His animatronic tyranny. Excuse me. Let's see, Daniel's Hot Topic is saying, I hope William Shatner returns to Star Trek in the future. There's a script written by Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, and they wrote a great script for Star Trek Enterprise Season 4. The script was written for Enterprise, but they could not get Shatner, so they were going to get him for Season 5, had Season 5 got made. That would have been interesting. It's hard to see him reprise the role of Kirk at this point. He's really, really old and fat. Now, thankfully, I'm just fat. I'm not old yet, but I do got the fat part down. But when you're old and fat, and you see an actor trying to reprise a role when they were young and skinny, it's rough. Scotty pulled it off because, man, the episode, was it Legacy or in TNG? I think it was called Legacy.
Relics was the one on TNG.
Relics, yes. Thank you. It pulled off in Relics because he was such a fish out of water, and he was clearly beyond his moment. But to pull Shatner in now, it's like, oh gosh, what are you going to do it on? Discovery? Oh, I hope not. Section 31? We'll have to see how it turns out. Every new Star Trek show that comes out, I have hope. I refuse to judge a show before it starts. I admit I wasn't wanting a Section 31 show. But since it's going to get made, I'm going to hope for the best. I hope that Daniel is right about everything. I think, you know what? I think Prodigies is a show Shatner would work best on. You get him into an animated show, have them like travel back in time, and you got a young Kirk animated, and William Shatner's doing the voice. I think it'd be wonderful. I'd have a lot of fun with that kind of fan service episode. Can't be trouble with tribbles. We already did that with DS9. You gotta get new material, but something like that. It would be fun.
I should have Lower Decks travel back in time to an episode of the animated series. So you already
Oh
saw
my
that in one
goodness,
shot.
that'd be so funny. Like, have it turn out where they did the art style of the animated series too, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" And like, we've traveled back in time to a different dimension. The laws of physics work differently, and everything looks weird. And just do a whole episode on the TAS. That'd be hilarious. I would enjoy that. Uh, and yes, Professor Brainy Specs is saying it was relics as well. Yeah, everyone knows I'm bad with names. And Daniels is saying it would have started off back in Mirror Mirror, talking about William Shatner and Enterprise, I believe. And Mirror Spock would have used the Tantalus device on Kirk, and it would not have killed Mirror Kirk. It would have sent him to the Prime Universe in Archer's time. Interesting. That could have been a unique twist on the device, where instead of killing people, it just made them switch universes. I could see a show working with that. I could see it going off a plot line. In fact, the episode I watched today of Enterprise was the one where Brett Spiner had a guest appearance as some ancestor, soon ancestor, where he was doing the eugenic stuff, trying to make people better through genetic modification. And it was such a good two-parter, except they screwed up the message by making it be as simple as genetic enhancements inherently causes people to be evil. I think they missed out on a much more subtle thing they could have done. Maybe something that would have happened in TNG, where maybe some of them were over aggressive, some of them were just enhanced, and kind of like Bashir. But instead, they made it, making yourself enhanced leads to being overly aggressive. And they have a really weird line that I recall, where the main super soldier guy was upset that Soon was altering the genome of the embryos. And he made a big deal. How dare you? What gives you the right? I'm like, are you kidding me? Their genomes have already been altered. That's what the whole point is. He took the embryos and altered their genome. So why are you getting huffy about it now? But I digress. I see Piano Dean saying, I'm about to try watching Twin Peaks: The Return. I never watched the original, no clue what to expect. Piano Dean, I am right there with you. I know nothing about Twin Peaks, beyond the fact that it is a show. I know there is a restaurant called Twin Peaks.
The fact that it's a show is about all I know about it, too.
I now know, for the record, that Twin Peaks, the restaurant, is a place like Hooters. I did not know that a year ago when I was out in an oil field and all the oil field people are like, okay, let's go get lunch here at Twin Peaks. I thought the restaurant had something to do with the TV show. And so we go in there and like, oh, this is a double entendre. This is, Twin Peaks talking about lady parts. And it was quite the hilarious conversation later on, as everyone realized that I was such an idiot who didn't make the obvious connection about what the restaurant was all about.
You're not an idiot, you're just innocent. I can only imagine you in that kind of establishment.
The same thing happened. I had some training that I did for learning a certain piece of software. So you go through the training course, you get certified, and there are municipalities that really want to see that you have this certification. If you don't have the certification, you don't get the job kind of stuff. So the last day of the training, they say, hey, let's all go to Bone Daddy's. I'm like, oh, okay, what is that? Like some sort of Cajun, Louisiana place? And they're like, oh, yeah, something like that. They do great chicken. I'm like, okay, we'll go to Bone Daddy's. And I find out that it's another Hooters place. And that the the instructor just wanted us to take us to a Hooters type place. And Bone Daddy was obviously referring to how men react when they see a pretty lady, a natural physiological reaction, if you will. I spent a lot of the time just looking down at my phone at that restaurant. I thought Hooters had revealing clothing. No, no, they got nothing on Bone Daddies, which I don't know if that's a national chain or if that's something local. But it was such an awkward time because I'm there not just by myself in this training class, but my mentor was there with me, who also happened to go to the same church I did, and neither one of us had any idea of what we were about to walk into. So hilarious times for us. And Daniels is talking more about the script treatment for Shatner stuff. Archer would have gotten a distress call from a planet. They would have gone to investigate, and they would have found an older Mirror Kirk, and Archer would have met Mirror Kirk. Does that timeline work out there, Daniel? Because Kirk comes after Archer by a fair bit. So I guess the device not only sent you to a different universe, it sent you back in time?
Yeah, from what I understand of what he's explaining is just like the Defiant went back in time. Apparently, the Tantalus device also sends you back in time and into the other universe,
Huh. Okay.
which is
Okay.
weird, but yeah.
I mean, you'd have to do that. If you wanted Shatner to play Mirror Kirk, you'd have to be like, well, I guess it also sends you back in time, and everyone would go, oh, okay, sure, why not? And then both of them would have tried to get Mirror Kirk back to his universe, only to find out that the mirror universe does not exist at that time. Interesting. I mean, the mirror universe, it would have had to exist. I would call foul on that one, Daniel. The mirror universe has always had to exist. I could see them saying that it hasn't split off into the militaristic universe, although it had by Archer's time. Yeah, that's where they lose me, Daniel. You had me up until that point. But we clearly see that the mirror universe does exist in Archer's time in season 4. It is the hyper military universe. So they clearly would have had to tweak it. Daniel's or not Daniel, excuse me. I read the wrong line. LDG Pixels is waving. Hey, LDG, how are you doing? Man, you have got to come out to the pub more often. I miss having you on there and getting to talk with us about how Discovery is doing and how your project is doing. The name slips my mind at the moment. Not Veritas, that's someone else. Prometheus. I miss hearing about how your Prometheus is doing and just all that good stuff. Miss hanging out with you, my friend, but glad to see that you're here. And now the multi-gunman is saying the only Twin Peaks I like are under a bra. Duly noted. Thank you. And yes, that is clearly the Twin Peaks that the restaurant is talking about. I didn't know that at the time. Oh, how I didn't know that at the time. And yes, Professor Brainy Specs, I swear, I literally didn't know that. I go to the place, and it's hilarious because I stop there, and my wife sends me a text like, Matt, are you eating at this restaurant? I'm like, yeah, why? She's like, do you know what sort of restaurant it is? I said, something to do with a TV show, right? And she's like, oh, no, darling. That is not what it's about at all. So I found that out the hard way. Multi-Gunman saying, I must go to Bone Daddy's. I honestly don't know if it's a national chain or not. I just know that there is a local restaurant, at least, in Grapevine, which is, within a half hour of where I live. And Piano Dean is saying someone should open a restaurant right next to Dual Peaks. Call it Dual Spires. Okay. I assume we're just doing, what's the word, synonyms for dual and peak? Okay. Would it have the same theme, though, Piano Dean? Or would it be something innocuous? I mean, I was about to say I couldn't see a restaurant or two restaurants right next to each other that like have the same theme of scantily clad women. Like you would think those would be counterproductive to open up right next to another one. But I also realize there's a lot of guys out there who want that sort of thing when they eat. So I'm probably underestimating the amount of men who would support both places. And I'm also underestimating people in general because let's be honest, I have gone to places where there was a Tom Thumb that had a Starbucks inside of it, and immediately next to that was a Starbucks. And it wasn't a drive-through Starbucks. It was just a Starbucks that was part of a strip mall. So I mean, you would think that would be too close, but nope. They right next to each other, and both of them did a lot of business apparently. Well, guys, we have been going for about an hour and 20 minutes, so let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Mr. DiMarco, do you have any final thoughts?
I keep looking forward to doing another episode next week. It's been very enjoyable going through them together.
It really is. I am so glad that we're doing it every week now. Just thrill the bits that we finally got this part worked out so that every week we can see the next episode because let's see, how many more episodes in this season do we have? We just finished episode 15 and there are 24. So we have a solid 10 more weeks, maybe 9 more weeks of episodes before we get to the end of season 1 of 3 episodes. So yes, I'm extremely excited that we will get through that within the next year, or really within the next 2 months instead of within the next like 6 years at the rate we were going of once a month. My fault. Sorry, everyone. So very, very excited about that. Well, on that note, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me and John. I hope that you enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you next week when we will be watching Season 1, Episode 16, Greed for a Pirate's Dream.
Good night.
Night, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please share it. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that bell icon to be kept up to date with all the new videos that I release on this channel. And as always, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.